Next, we have discussion and potential action items. Item number 13, discussion and direction regarding over-the-counter building permit applications subject to the City of Livingston's current water supply conditions. Mr. Chavarria.
Good evening, Council. Staff report you have before you is a discussion and direction item. As indicated in the staff report, we made reference to the water system capacity evaluation performed by our city engineer and the equipment evaluation assessment performed by Public Works. City staff is seeking council direction on their preference for addressing the lack of available water for over-the-counter building permit applications. Staff has also provided two possible options for council's consideration. Option one, development of an ad hoc committee comprised of staff that would make recommendations to the building official based on water demands for projects on a case-by-case basis. Option two, development of a water permit allocation system that would issue permits based on water system capacity availability. Now, I'll ask Shannon if he can provide a bit more context for council for options 1 and 2. And Shannon, if you could also provide a little more context on the what the permit process looks like for our public.
Thank you so much, Anthony. For the benefit of the public, there are various types of permits that the city issues. And it can be broadly broken down into two categories. You have what are called discretionary permits. Those are typically your conditional use permits or rezones or general plan amendments or maybe site plans. And then you have what are called your more ministerial permits. And ministerial permits include building permits. And one way to think of a ministerial permit is that in most cases, it's kind of like getting a driver's license. If you meet the basic requirements, the permit issues. And so if you meet the basic requirements for a building permit, generally that building permit will issue. There are some exceptions. For example, if you try to put up a 26-story skyscraper, courts have said that's not a building permit issue. You really need to go through another process. So what does that mean for us today on our options? Well, there's not a mechanism in a ministerial process to say, well, hey, we need to have an additional review process as to whether or not to approve a building permit. However, there is an option where the building permit can be denied or conditioned if there are written findings backed by a preponderance of the evidence that this particular project will have a specific adverse impact on public safety and welfare. That under those conditions, for example, if you don't have enough water, that can be an impact on public safety because water affects our ability to provide fire services, drinking water, and maintaining public health and safety. So as part of the building permit process, it is an option for the City Council, if it's so inclined, to appoint an ad hoc committee. And that ad hoc committee would basically provide recommendations to the building official saying, based on the circumstances we have, here are specific adverse conditions that exist that affect public health and safety, and assist the building official with the preparation of the written findings in order to deny the permit. So that's one option. There are some ways to address that process. For example, it is an option for the City Council if we are at a water condition where there is not enough water to issue building permits at this time. It is possible for the City Council to engage in a denial of the permits without prejudice and then refund certain processing fees if they're so inclined. There are also options where we can help prioritize certain items, but there's a limit to that because under state law, there is a precedence for housing because there is a housing shortage statewide. So if there are specific concerns about the lack of water for one building permit, they would need to apply to all building permits. Because if there's a citywide lack of water and it's not just local, that would be something that would be universal. Other than the building permit, the recommendation with an ad hoc committee to assist the building official drafting written findings as necessary and moving forward on these ministerial permits, it is also possible to do something where you have an allocation system. And I don't want to use the word lottery, but in some ways it's kind of like a lottery. No, if the council's interested in exploring this option, we would need to do additional research, but some jurisdictions where there's a lot of development, such as on the coast, where everybody wants to live, where it's the weather's nice and the view's great. There's only so many places on the coast where there's enough water for these houses. And so what the Coastal Commission will do is everybody will get together and they basically have a lottery. They say, we have X amount of water for you, and then you draw a lottery of everybody who's coming on, so everybody has the same opportunity in order to get a development permit in order to move forward. Some jurisdictions may be more familiar with like a cannabis license or permit where you have a cap about so many amount, so many licenses within a jurisdiction. So for your options tonight, the two options that Anthony are bringing up are, one, do you want to do an ad hoc committee to help out the building official to make the determinations on these building permits with regards to our current water status? Or two, do you want to explore an allocation system, a lottery as it were, to see if that's even an option at this particular point? I hope I got everything, Anthony. I'm available for any questions.
Yeah, I think, Shannon, if you could maybe touch on instances or scenarios on where, say, an ad hoc committee would review permits that may be acceptable, such as conservation efforts.
Yeah, thank you. That is a very good point. So one of the things an ad hoc committee could do is they could help out the building official to look at particular circumstances. So if the general rule is, I'm just talking hypothetically, if you don't have any water for everybody and there's not enough water to use even one more building permit, then you would generally be denying them. But what if somebody comes in that wants to remodel an apartment and put in low-flow faucets and low-flow toilets and maybe landscaping that uses less water? Those can result in a positive savings to the city of water and will have less of an impact. So one of the things that the city could do is they could do an equivalency. So if an applicant came in and said, I'm using this much water now, but with my remodel, I'll be using less water, the ad hoc committee would be able to assist the building official saying, yes, we've looked over this evidence and documents. We believe that is less, and there's going to be a water savings as a result of issuance of this particular building permit, and they can make that recommendation to the building official.
Great. Thank you, Shannon.
I don't want to step on your shoes. So yes, you are correct, Mayor. The reason is for building permits, there is not a legal mechanism for the city council to review them. So you may see park recommendations, you may see UP, you may see variances, but a building permit is ministerial. And because it's ministerial 99% of the time, that means it's check the box. There's no discretion to grant or deny. You can't pick or choose. It's either issue or there must be a written basis and findings as to why issuance can occur. So it's really an all or nothing proposition when it comes to water, whether or not you're issuing building permits. Because if you're short as to everyone. And if you have capacity, then you have to issue if you have capacity. So your question is in essence, how do we let the developers know so they're not surprised? And how do we protect the city's interests knowing already that we're short of water? And so one way is, as you pointed out, and that is to condition our entitlements, any CUPs, variances, or anything else, right off the bat, letting them know that we're short of water. And that, in fact, under CEQA, you can put in mitigation measures as well. Technically, we can do the same for a building permit if we're short of water. Now, if we're short of water and we're doing a lottery system, and again, I recommend more research on how that would exactly work. In theory, you would say to them, yes, we can develop your project. Yes, yes, we can process your development of your project, and we can get you your entitlements all lined up. But at some point, there needs to be water. You can't make water out of stone. And when water comes available, we will do a lottery system where we basically draw a name out of the hat based on the available water. The problem with that approach is that houses use different amount of water than commercial, which uses different amount of water than industrial. So you could have a commercial user, a typical household uses about 1 acre-foot per year. So an industrial user could use many multiples of acre-feet per year, and a commercial user could use 4, or sometimes even less. Like, for example, Daryl's mini storage or something does not use very much water. One of the ways that you could do that is if you only have 6 acre-feet available, is you pull the first person out of the hat, and if it happens to be a commercial use that says, hey, 4 acre-feet, well, then you've already used 4 acre-feet, and then if you pull out a residence and they've used 1 acre-foot, then you only have 1 left. So if you pick up another commercial and it's got 5 acre-feet, you go to the next one. But there would be a process. Again, we're trying to, Anthony is trying to explore options to see initially which way the council wants to go. An allocation system, again, we would need to research exactly how that would work within the city. There are some limitations out there we would need to look into. But if the council is interested in that as an option, we can certainly use the resources to do that. Otherwise, the council can either choose to set up an ad hoc committee with regards to the recommendations, or it can leave the process in place at this time and to the discretion of staff, i.e. not appoint an ad hoc committee. So it's whoever the city council decides to appoint to the ad hoc committee. So the ad hoc committee, I would recommend two council members at most. You obviously don't want to have more than 2 council members because you have additional requirements. You could also include somebody from Public Works or somebody else that may have expertise and knowledge on the background. But the role of the ad hoc committee would be to assist the building official, because currently there's not a mechanism for the ad hoc committee to give orders to the building official on how the building official is going to issue his job. However, the ad hoc committee can help out the building official with regards to written findings and a basis for this. And if there are city council members that are included on the ad hoc committee, they would obviously be in the loop as to what is going on and why we have such an acute water shortage at this time. So, and I'll leave Anthony for some of this, but there's certain legal restrictions on private parties and even public agencies from being able just to drill their own wells and use it, because what we have found is in circumstances like that, you have everything from naturally attenuating arsenic, you have water levels that may not, or water compliance levels that may not be in compliance with state law. If you connect them to the city system, you have to have the appropriate backflow preventer devices and contamination issues that go across. And if you have a standalone system, what it does is it basically starts to create suck the water. It's like additional straw in a bottle. It starts to draw water from the city's wells around it. What may be an option, and Anthony may want to jump in here as well, is you can technically say to a developer can come in and say, well, hey, I'd like to do this development, and I'll even add a well for the city. It won't be my well, it'll be a city well. It'll be built to city specifications. We have a dream project that's coming in. Sure, 99% of it will be for my whatever, but assuming it meets our urban water management plan, that's a perfect scenario. You have the developer developing it, putting it together, the water usage is there, provides additional water for us. The city doesn't have to pay for it or only for excess capacity. The problem is the development would not be able to actually develop and get their occupancy permits until the well came online and was certified for the amount necessary to provide water to that development.
And built to city standards, of course,
Yeah, and-
and deeded over to the city.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, it has been shown that there is a chilling effect. Most developers don't want to develop if they don't know what's going to happen.
You just
But,
development in Livingston.
but at least the developers have that option available to them. And in fact, Ms. Renee, I want to thank you again thank you for your comment regarding the regional housing needs assessment and housing. That triggered a reminder for me that with regards to if we were to go through a lottery or allocation process, housing comes first. So that means that all the housing needs have to be addressed before you can go on to commercial or industrial or anything else like that. Because we have not met our arenas, we're apparently short, and we need to meet our housing element. So housing comes first where water is concerned. So if we're inclined to have to stop because we don't have any until these new wells and the infrastructure come online, technically you're supposed to stop with the commercial, industrial, and then the housing is last, then ADUs are the very, very last, that's accessory dwelling units. But that's the hierarchy for that process. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
I reminded him of that.
Thank you.
I was just joking.
Are you ready to entertain a motion?
Well, if there's no more questions, if there's any more discussion, so we do have, I think we have a couple of options, unless you have a specific option in mind.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I would make the motion to approve option 1, development of the ad hoc comprised of staff that would make recommendation. Item number 1, option 1.
That was a ad hoc committee?
Yes.
And do you want to make that motion first and then
Can you-
decide who's on the ad hoc
Mike?
afterwards?
Would that be coming back, or we can, because we don't have a full council right now.
I'm so sorry. So your option is to say, yes, I'd like to explore the ad hoc option when the full council comes back at the next meeting.
Okay.
So we just place it on the agenda for that to appoint the ad hoc.
Okay, I will amend my motion to take option 1 and to bring back the item with the full council to appoint the ad hoc committee.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'll go ahead and second that. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Soto?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Semmer?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion failed by a vote of 2-1.
Pardon me, this is actually an unusual circumstance because it's not a resolution. It's now a majority of the
Supermajority.
quorum
Okay.
present. So it technically passed, but because it's going to be on the agenda for the next council, the full council can take action as appropriate at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.